Welcome, everyone, to the first episode of Monday Morning Morons, where we discuss current events and the spin that passes for news these days. I assume you know how this sort of thing works. I'll show you some news stories from the week that were either really stupid or that I just felt I had to comment on in my own particular way. I know, it's not Monday morning, I'm late. I apologize for that, but I highly underestimated how much time it was going to take to put all this together. I worked as much as I could Sunday, but ended up running out of time before it was finished, so you'll have to excuse me on this first one. Now that I have an idea how long piecing all this stuff together is going to take, I can plan better next time and hopefully stick to Monday morning releases. Okay, let's get started. This week, headlines were absolutely dominated by the Charlottesville story, or at least its inevitable, ever-spinning narrative and runoff opinion pieces masquerading as news. Unless you live under a rock, I'm sure you've heard what happened by now, so I'm not going to drag this out by repeating it yet again. Instead, let's move on to the aftermath, because that's where the trucks full of bullshit really line up. Spin Alley, or as we know it today, network news. Let's begin with the inevitable fluff pieces about Heather Heyer, who I'm now calling the martyr of Charlottesville, because evidently she was literally the greatest person to ever walk the earth. Now, naturally, when someone gets killed, people fall all over themselves to one-up the last person's story about how good and perfect and virtuous and caring and wonderful, yet humble, the deceased person was, and every time this sort of thing happens, I turn into Frank Cross.
I can see now, no one could have been that simple and good and sweet and kind and decent, yet caring, wonderful. Not on this planet!
Don't get me wrong, I get it. No one wants to speak ill of the dead, and yes, I understand that's the least you could do. But it does start to go over the top, don't you think? If or when I die, here's what I want. First, if people feel the need to have a funeral for me, fine, whatever, go ahead. I don't care either way. It's about you at this point, not me anyway. So whatever floats your boat. You can toss me in the city dump for all I care. I'm dead. That's the beauty of being dead, right? I don't have to give a crap anymore. But if there is a funeral and people come to say their goodbyes or whatever it is people do at funerals, kindly remind everyone to tell the truth. I don't want people to stand around and declare that if only I'd lived, I'd have been the next global savior or cured cancer or whatever such nonsense. Anyone who knows me isn't going to believe that shit anyway. Give me something like this.
That's funny. He was a difficult guy. I don't know anyone that actually liked him. But
Short, to the point, and true. Next, we move along to the president's remarks because, of course, something bad happened, and the president absolutely must comment on it, because media shitstorm equals national tragedy or something, I guess.
We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides. On many sides.
Now, ordinarily, you'd probably listen to the whole thing and then write your story about it. But that's why you're not a network news reporter. You see, this is the only part they heard, and this is when the screeching began. This part forced their little brains to short circuit, so evidently they didn't even hear the rest and forgot everything he said before just for good measure. He didn't say white supremacists! He's covering for the alt-right! That fucking Nazi! Ree! And why do we get this autistic screeching from mainstream media outlets? In CNN's own words, both sides don't scream racist and anti-Semitic things at people with whom they disagree.
All white people are racist. So I put this up because I really want any white person in the room to know up front that this is what we're dealing with.
They don't base a belief system on superiority of one race over others.
To say that the Black Lives Matter movement is racist is bizarre to me. Not just because black people don't have the institutional power to be racist or to deploy racism.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get into fistfights with people who don't see things their way. They don't create chaos and leave a trail of injured behind them. because these deluded halfwits honestly believe this garbage. They're selectively deaf, dumb, and blind. As the clips show, the lefty extremists are literally doing every single one of the things he just said they don't do. But when they do it, it's totally different because rhetoric. That's it, really. Look at it objectively and you can see it clear as day. These lefties are every bit as racist, bigoted, and hateful as the people they claim to be fighting against, but because they say they aren't, they're magically absolved. So if these alt-right, Nazi, white supremacist, KKK, whatever label we're giving them this week, if these guys just put their white hoods back on, shoot police officers, punch otherwise peaceful protesters, stab police or their animals.
Also in Harrisburg, a woman is charged with assaulting a police horse. Harrisburg police say Lisa Simon struck the horse with a flagpole Saturday during the Act for America rally at the state capitol.
Overturn cop cars.
Break that shit!
Or light them on fire. Drag random people out of their cars and beat them because they assume those people had the audacity to vote for Hillary.
I believe vote Trump, damn it. You voted Trump! You voted Trump! Oh, you yeah! Yeah, he voted Trump! She been yeah!
And then claim all of this is about loving white people, not hating black people, then it'd be just fine. Then they're protesters, not racist assholes. That's really how all this works in your mind? Let's move on to the statues, because that was evidently the reason this Unite the Right rally originally happened in the first place. It was to protest the removal of a Robert E. Lee statue. Now, like many of you, I smell bullshit here, but this was the stated goal of their protest. They went through the proper channels to obtain their permits. Incidentally, anyone else find that to be complete bullshit? You need the government's fucking permission to protest now? The founding fathers are spinning in their graves over that crap. Anyway, while you may not like what they had to say, they were peaceful on the first night of their event. They weren't punching anyone, they weren't throwing rocks or bricks or anything at police, they weren't kicking in the windows of Starbucks, they weren't burning random cars, nothing. Just some charged rhetoric. Words. That's it. Which they have every right to do. Then the counter-protest came in, and we all know what happened after that, so let's not rehash that. Back to the statue. Trump mentioned it in his remarks.
But many of those people were there to protest the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. So, this week it's Robert E. Lee. I noticed that Stonewall Jackson's coming down. I wonder, is it George Washington next week? And is it Thomas Jefferson the week after? You know, you really do have to ask yourself, where does it stop?
Where does it stop? And of course, the media says, come on, you lunatic. No one wants to take down George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. We just want to tear down those hateful symbols of the white supremacist Confederacy. Don't be an idiot, Trump. Oh, how soon they forget. It's already begun. It's time. Please read my letter to Mayor Rahm Emanuel and the Chicago Park District, Mr. Dukes wrote on Facebook Tuesday night. I'm calling on them to change the names of Washington and Jackson Park. Slave owners do not deserve the honor of our children playing in parks named after them. And you think it's just the founding fathers? Nope. Sims, famously known as the founder of modern surgical gynecology, developed an operation that helped women who were experiencing a complication during labor known as vesicovaginal fistula. Sorry, my Latin sucks. 8 decades later, a statue of Sims was erected by the Women's Auxiliary of the South Carolina Medical Association in 1929. That argument is deeply profound in the South and certainly in the wake of Charlottesville. Everyone is talking about it, Benjamin told Fox News regarding the larger issue surrounding Confederate memorials. I had mentioned this statue of Marion Sims that I found personally offensive as a husband and father of 2 daughters. The experiments he conducted in the 19th century in the name of medicine were torturous. They were despicable, and it's gone without a great deal of notice. You see what's happening here? I personally find it offensive, so it must go. Now, I don't actually know shit about this Dr. Sims guy. I'm not a doctor, and I don't spend a lot of time studying gynecology. Sorry. But the argument here is what grabbed my attention. I don't like it, therefore it must go. If that's the bar we have to crawl under, then it looks like Trump's rhetorical question wasn't so crazy after all, huh? Someone, anyone, anywhere, for any reason, doesn't like this thing? Fuck it. Gone. Take that, Martin Luther King, you violent fascist Nazi! And it doesn't end with statues. The owner of the Boston Red Sox said he will ask the city to rename Yawkey Way, a street that he called a haunting reminder of the ball club's history of racial intolerance. Yawkey owned the club from 1933 until his death in 1976, and his wife, Jean, ran the club until her death in 1992. She left the ball club in the care of a foundation that bore their name until it was sold to Henry and his partners in 2002 for $700 million. During Yawkey's tenure, the team was the last in Major League Baseball to integrate in 1959. So, a street next to Red Sox Stadium, named for the former owner of the Red Sox, must be changed because he didn't do what today's lefties wanted him to do fast enough. And this? Transit officials have decided to alter subway tiles at a Manhattan station that have a cross-like design similar to that of the Confederate flag. Metropolitan Transportation Authority Kevin Ortiz said Friday the agency is modifying the tiles at the 40th Street entrance to the Times Square subway stop to make it crystal clear that they don't depict the flag. He said the red, white, and blue design installed decades ago was meant to reflect Times Square's status as the crossroads of the world. So, crosses are out because they might somehow in some way trigger some fucking moron by its mere similarity to something they don't like. I guess we'd better get rid of the colors too then. Red, white, and blue are gone. They might remind intellectually challenged shitheels of the Confederate flag. Stars and stripes? Nope, gotta go. Union Jack? Nope, sorry, you've got both the cross and the colors. Holy shit! That's like literally the same thing, you fucking racist Nazis. France? Sorry, buddy, new color scheme for you. Hell, Russia? Your new flag has got to go. You should have just stuck with the old one. These morons seem to love that one. Anything with an X on it absolutely must go. From now on, the street department better fucking spell out cross and quit terrorizing helpless, emotional people of color with that racist cross at intersections and railroad crossings. Now, yes, I'm being deliberately hyperbolic here, but everyone thought Trump's rhetorical question was hyperbole as well. Look where we are now. It's like they took what he said as a challenge to see just how far they could stretch it. So indeed, the question is, where does this retarded shit stop? If we appease these lunatics and take down every Confederate statue and remove every mention of everyone who said or did anything even remotely offensive to anyone, they still won't be happy because it's not about the statues at all. It's about subjugating the majority in favor of empowering the minority. It's a power shift. Take the power from those who currently have it and give it to us instead. Behind all the rhetoric and all the demonstrations, it's a power shift. That's all it is. We want to be in charge, period. They don't actually want equality, so don't fall for that horse crap. Equality of outcome is a fucking farce anyway. The only possible way to achieve that is to drag everyone down to the lowest common denominator. Not everyone can be a CEO. There simply aren't enough of those jobs for everyone, even if we assumed everyone had the capacity and the desire to even do that job. Since we can't all be one, then the only equality solution is no one can be one. What about pilots? Nope, we can't all do that. Doctors? Hell no. Investment bankers? Nope, those are gone too. Until we get all the way down to the bottom rung. We can all be lazy couch potatoes. So from now on, in the interest of equality, anyone with any drive to be more than a mindless television zombie must be held back. Now I'm being extreme here, but the point is, that's the only way to achieve this equal outcome horseshit. Imagine telling Stevie Ray Vaughan that he can't play the guitar anymore because you're not as good as he is. That's where equality of outcome gets you. And that's not what they want. They pay lip service to it, sure, but it's not what they want. They want to be in charge of everything. Trouble is, they're lazy. They don't want to work for it. They want you to build them an empire, then hand over the throne to them. They are spoiled children with a god complex. Nothing more. Let me tell you children a little story about getting rid of racists. Maybe you'll learn something. When I was a kid, we saw Klan members do their little gathering around the courthouse in my hometown. They did it every year, if I remember correctly, and every year, their group got smaller and smaller. You know why? Because no one took them seriously. We viewed them as a joke and gave them no credibility. Their message fell on deaf ears, and fewer people bothered to even notice them. Their numbers shrank because we didn't freak out and give them the attention their gathering was obviously meant to attract. You dipshits have done exactly the opposite. You've given these people everything they could have ever hoped for. You've re-energized what was a dying movement/sentiment, but no, you couldn't leave well enough alone to follow its natural course into the past. You shined the spotlight on it, you gave them the attention they seek, far more than they deserve, and now they're coming back into vogue because you fuckers decided that racism against whites would totally fix the problem. You can spin whatever horseshit definition you want with this power plus privilege nonsense, but all you're really doing is justifying your own racism. You can't pretend to oppose racism, then pitch a racist message. We're not buying it. You have recreated the very thing you say you opposed, and up next, you're going to create the police state you pretend we already have because sooner or later, the real people are going to say enough is enough. They will pick up their phones, log on to their emails, or write old-fashioned letters by the tens of thousands and send them to local, state, and federal officials everywhere asking for the very thing you pretend to oppose, and they'll get it. Because you know what scares these politicians more than your hate mob? Losing their seat at the table. The real majority of this country doesn't side with either you or the fucking white supremacists. We are not persuaded by bullshit, and we do not believe in your farcical fairy tales.